My name is Tanvir, and my world shattered on the morning I found my granddaughter, Aisha, left on my doorstep. I remember the chill in the air as I opened the heavy wooden gate to find her sitting alone on the stone step, clutching her little white cane. Her dark eyes, half hidden behind thick lashes, looked up at me with confusion and hurt. Her small frame trembled in her pink sweater, and I sprinted across the yard, swept her into my arms, and pressed her tiny face against my chest. Tears blurred my vision. How could her own mother and father abandon her so cruelly? Only yesterday they had kissed her goodnight, promised to keep her safe. And today they were halfway across the ocean on a luxury cruise, leaving me to care for this precious, vulnerable child. My heart ached as I carried her inside and settled her on the couch. She touched my cheek with a finger, sensing my tears, and whispered, "Grandma?" I kissed her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart, Grandma's here." I rung the phone, hands shaking, and dialed my son's number. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I left a message. "Aisha is here. Come home now. I don't know where you are, but she needs you. Please, come back." Then I sent a text. No response. That's when I understood they meant to leave her. Pain and anger roared in my chest. My son, once my little boy who clung to my skirts, had grown selfish. His wife, whom I had welcomed with open arms, was a stranger. They viewed Aisha as a burden, an obstacle to their carefree life. But not me. I would protect my granddaughter with every breath. Her father's flight had already taken off. I checked the departure board online. He boarded at dawn, bound for the Caribbean. A 12-hour journey. Meanwhile, Aisha and I were stranded. I cradled her on my lap and stroked her hair. "Did they say goodbye?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "They went boom, boom," she said, using the word she'd invented for cruise. I swallowed. Boom, boom. That was the pirate ship they'd promised. But pirates don't abandon their treasure. My world narrowed to the two of us. With supervision orders impossible to secure across an international border from a province I'd never visited, I made a swift, painful decision. I would sell the one thing I owned outright. The little white cottage on Maple Lane, where my husband and I had raised our family. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Mortgage free. I would sell it, buy a place near my son in the city, enroll Aisha in a school for the visually impaired, and build her a stable life. Perhaps then her parents would realize their cruelty and return. I listed the cottage that afternoon. By dusk, I had an offer. A young couple with a toddler wanted a quiet home near the park. We agreed on the price within 48 hours. Packing up was agonizing. Each photograph, each trinket on the mantel recalled laughter and tears, birthdays and Christmas mornings. But I wrapped them carefully and sent them to my daughter-in-law's parents' house in Lahore, hoping they'd forward them to her. On the morning, the movers loaded the last box. I tucked Aisha into her stroller and wheeled her to the bus. Stop. Her cane lay on the seat next to her. She babbled about birds and flowers she imagined in the park. My chest tightened. Soon the cottage would belong to strangers, and we would begin anew. We arrived in the city 2 days later. The roar of traffic and the honking horns overwhelmed her senses. I held her hand tightly. We navigated crowded sidewalks to the apartment I'd rented near the specialized school. It was cramped but bright, with wide doorways and tactile floor markings I'd installed. I painted the walls a cheerful yellow to lift our spirits. A staircase to the rooftop provided a view of the skyline. At night, we'd sit there and listen to the city's hum. The first day of school terrified her. She clung to my skirt as other children filed in, canes tapping on the polished floor. I knelt and whispered, "You're safe, my love. You'll make friends." Then I kissed her cheek and left the room. I wandered the nearby market, bargaining for fresh produce, tears rolling down my cheeks. My sacrifice felt enormous. Yet as I watched her cane move confidently across the tiled floor when I returned, I knew I'd done the right thing. Weeks passed. Aisha blossomed. She learned Braille and orientation techniques. She laughed with classmates and pointed out sounds only she could hear. I spent my days working part-time at the library, reading aloud to groups of children. My voice, once reserved for cooking and bedtime stories, rang through the aisles. I earned enough to cover rent and groceries. On weekends, Aisha and I explored the botanical gardens. I described the colors of roses and lily. She closed her eyes and inhaled their fragrance, smiling. Meanwhile, my son and his wife still did not respond. I tried calling, texting, emailing. Their silence was a slap in the face. Eventually, I realized they had no intention of coming back. They preferred the luxury cruise life to caring for their child. My heart broke for Aisha, but anger fueled me. They might have wealth, but I had love. One evening, after I tucked Aisha into bed, she whispered, "Grandma, why Mama and Abu no come?" I knelt and hugged her. "Sweetheart, sometimes adults make mistakes, but you're not alone. I will always be here." A tear rolled down her cheek. I kissed her palm. "I promise you, things will get better." Then inspiration struck. I would write a book, a story about overcoming abandonment, about a little blind girl whose grandmother sold her home to give her a better life. My experiences, our journey, if I shared them, perhaps we could help others in similar situations. I spent nights typing on my old laptop, recounting every fear, every triumph. My manuscript grew by the day. Writing healed me. 6 months later, the book was finished. I submitted it to a publisher specializing in memoirs and children's stories. They accepted it, citing its heartfelt narrative and vivid portrayal of a special bond. Before long, the book hit shelves under the title The Light Within Darkness. Reviews praised its honesty and warmth. Readers wrote letters telling me they cried and felt hope. Sales soared with royalties. I moved us into a larger apartment with a private garden. I hired a tutor for Aisha in piano and tactile painting. She composed melodies and created gorgeous textures on canvas. One Sunday, I arranged a book signing at the Botanical Gardens where we'd first explored the city. Hundreds turned up, lining up with copies of The Light Within Darkness. I sat at a wooden table under a canopy of roses, signing each book with my pen. Aisha stood beside me, smiling shyly. Suddenly, through the crowd, I spotted my son and his wife. Their faces were pale, eyes wide. They watched as strangers hugged me, told me how much the story meant to them. I saw shame flicker across their features. They approached cautiously. My son's voice quavered, "Grandma." I turned. He swallowed, tears in his eyes. We both stared, memories of childhood flooding back. I gestured to the line. "Go ahead." I kept signing. Afterward, they waited by the roses. My granddaughter slipped her hand into mine and whispered, "Who are those people?" I whispered back, "Those are your parents." She looked up at them. They stepped forward, hand outstretched toward her. She pulled back into my embrace. I tightened my grip, my son cleared his throat. "Grandma, I'm sorry. We made a terrible mistake. We were selfish. We thought we were too young to be parents. We left her with you and ran away. We came back, but were too ashamed to face you." I closed my book and stood. I looked at him, then at my daughter-in-law. Her eyes were red. She dropped her gaze. I took a deep breath. "You abandoned her. You abandoned your daughter. You left me to pick up your pieces. I don't know if I can forgive that." My son sank to his knees. "Please, Grandma, Please forgive me." I knelt in front of him. He took my hands, trembling. I looked into his eyes and saw a boy I once knew, fearful and lost. I squeezed his hands. "I forgave you long ago. Just tell me you'll stay this time." He nodded. We embraced as a family. Aisha peeked out from behind my skirt. I scooped her up and held her to our chests. Her small arms wrapped around both of us. We cried together under the roses. Months later, they moved across the hall into our garden apartment. They enrolled. Aisha in the same school, joined us at story readings, helped me with book events. My granddaughter's laughter echoed through our home once more. Years passed. Aisha, now a young woman, graduated at the top of her class. She spoke at her commencement. In Braille, her voice clear and proud. She dedicated her first novel to her grandmother, the woman who sold her home to give her a brighter future. As we celebrated on the rooftop under a canopy of stars, my heart swelled with pride. We had overcome abandonment, hardship, and betrayal. Our love was stronger than any adversity. I squeezed my granddaughter's hand and whispered, "Shine, my light," and she did. Her life became a beacon for others, a testament to the power of sacrifice, forgiveness, and unwavering love. And so, from the day she was left on my doorstep to the moment she stood on her own 2 feet, our journey proved that family is not defined by location or convenience, but by the depth of our commitment to each other and the strength of our love.